We know the Hornets just can't beat Philadelphia. We know how much of a problem it is. 16 games in a row, Philadelphia has beaten the Charlotte Hornets, and this could be the 17th game that it happens. And what's interesting about it and what's painful about it is that, Doug, all of these losses seem to be pretty close. The two losses you point to this year, they're losses that are, I think, by just 4 and even 3. One of those games went into overtime where the 76ers were able to separate themselves. And that was one of the games, I believe both of them, were when the Hornets didn't have some guys back because of COVID protocols. You almost had a great way to end the curse. Instead, it continues. We explored why. Nick Batum guaranteed a victory against the 76ers in the second win that they had in this streak. Of course, it doesn't happen, and they haven't beaten the Philadelphia 76ers since. What are you looking for tonight, Doug? Like, how much would it mean to beat Philadelphia for you as a Hornets fan compared to all the other wins that the Hornets have, including just these last two against Milwaukee?
Well, yeah, that's the interesting thing, I think, is that a win tonight against Philadelphia would mean significantly more, I think, for Hornets fans than it would actually mean for the players that are playing for the Charlotte Hornets tonight, because a lot of them haven't witnessed, well, certainly none of them have witnessed all of these losses because the losses span so many years. But I don't think they're focused on the streak at all. They don't really care about that. They're really just coming off these 2 wins against Milwaukee, preparing for to try to get one back against Philadelphia team that, like you said, they've played close this year. December 6th and 8th, it was a similar situation then. The home game that they had with Milwaukee, it was the same kind of situation. They had 2 straight home games against Philadelphia. And the first one, Philly won 127-124 in overtime. In that game, Embiid had 43, 15, and 7. And then the follow-up game, they won 110-106. Embiid had 32 and 8. And Seth Curry also played well in that game. Seth Curry questionable for this game, probably not going to play. But it's still going to be a tough matchup because Philly, they have so many tall players.
Yeah.
They're so big. And
They're big.
Not a single starter tonight. If Seth Curry doesn't play and they go with the starting lineup that they went with in the last game, not a single starter is under 6'5". So.
Yeah, they're extremely big, and we know that Joel Embiid is one of the worst things that could possibly happen to the Hornets. It's a guy like Nikola Jokic, it's a Rudy Gobert, it's a Joel Embiid. Anybody that has any kind of muscle mass or is just physically big, along with being tall, that's brutal. And Doug, I don't know if you've seen Joel Embiid's game log here recently, but
I have.
He's been a part of 7 straight wins for them. He's had 31 points in each of the last 4 games that he's played. He had 34 against Brooklyn, 36 against Toronto and Washington. The low mark for him was 23 against Atlanta, and before that he had 41 against Boston, 32 against Brooklyn. He is playing like an MVP right now. I know that he's probably not in the conversation, but if you were to go back to the past 10 games, he's been unbelievable, also helping that team win basketball games. So going to be really tough to stop Joel Embiid tonight. I do think this, though. You mentioned the players not necessarily caring about the streak. I think a couple do. Like Miles being, I think he's the longest tenured Hornet right now, by the way, which is crazy to think about. Miles hadn't beaten Philadelphia. Never has experienced one victory over him. PJ Washington never experienced a victory over Philadelphia. LaMelo Ball, smaller sample, but has never experienced a victory over over Philadelphia. Like, I think when there's a team you just haven't beaten and you've played that many times, it's different when you're talking about a Lakers squad or something like that. But when you're talking about a team you play frequently and you are 0 against them, like that's got to be something you want to cross off the bucket list.
Yeah, no, I think so. And if you want some silver linings, Mason Plumlee, I think, has played better on defense these past few games. They just went up against a team that also has a pretty dominating physical player in Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they were able to game plan around trying to do their best to defend him. And I thought the game plan on Giannis got better from game 1 and that they won to game 2, which they were able to limit him a little bit more. So maybe they can knock Embiid off this 30-point streak. It's unlikely, but I think they've got a better shot right now than they've had all season. The other silver lining that you can look at is that, yes, Philly's hot right now. They've won 7 in a row. No doubt about that. The Hornets have won 3 in a row. But look at the last 4 games for Philadelphia. Houston, Orlando, San Antonio, Houston. They're blowing out, poopy teams.
Did
So
you figure out what form you wanted to go with?
I was searching for what word I wanted to go with that didn't start with an S. So I went poopy.
Yeah, you went from the S word to crappy to poopy. You settled on.
I don't
went
love
to your
the
very
word
elementary form.
I hear crap. I hear crappy on other broadcasts, and I don't know why. It's not.
I agree with you. Actually,
I don't
I
like
don't use
hearing that word. So I think poopy is a funnier word, whereas crappy is kind of it just sounds like crap. Like it just sounds weird. So I don't love that one. So I just shifted gears down into poopy. So 4 poopy teams right now: Houston, Orlando, San Antonio, Houston. Okay, so the Hornets are not poopy. They're not playing poopy, and their roster is such that they are not poopy. So I think the Hornets have just gotten they're on a high right now, but I think JB has got them in a really great mindset. It feels like everyone is just really engaged. I think that Washington loss really, if we want to kind of fast forward at the end of the season, if the Hornets are 6th seed, they're in play, they actually get to play a playoff series. I'm going to look back at that Washington loss and say that might have been the fulcrum point. That might have been the turning point for the Hornets, saying, wow, we really embarrassed ourselves there with that loss.
That's going to be your arbitrary point. Since this point in the season, they've been performing this well. The players even talked about that loss. They kind of talked about how painful it was.
It was a wake-up call. It was like, hey, we can't coast. We can't coast, and these are important every game. We can't waste this opportunity. We can't waste this opportunity when we know the schedule is going to ease up. We know we have an opportunity to do something that Hornets fans haven't experienced in a long time, which is go to an actual playoff series. Let's not ruin it.
All right. Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day. Should have Julian Council on tomorrow. We do have something in the works, so I think that's going to happen. Make sure you tune in to see Julian Council talk about the Charlotte Hornets. And he's not talking about Carolina Panthers stuff right now. Like maybe off-season stuff, that's kind of on the horizon, but he's not talking about any playoff games. So hopefully you can join us tomorrow. Make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
You know who is good at basketball? Michael Jordan.